Well, this is fun. We're going to do some more of this year. I'm going to be sharing and talking, and we're going to have a conversation. There's nothing more exciting to me than bringing people on and getting you to be able to listen to other people that are out there doing the mission, hanging in the mission, starting the mission, completing the mission, looking at succession of their mission. What's it going to be like for them next time, this year, next time. And I look at what I've been talking about lately in terms of when I'm on summits and when I'm on stages and kind of, what I think that we share from where we are. And one of the things that has been really important or really shown up or really pushed for me, because it wasn't always easy for me to do the things that I've done. And I think probably like you, I mean, I don't know how seasoned you are in your life, and I don't know how seasoned you are in your business that you're listening to this, but I think one of the core pieces for me that I'd love to share with you is about bravery. And for me, there's been times in my business where it's been easier for me to step up in my business than in my personal world. I don't know if you get that. Or there's times in my personal world that I've had to really work on or get things aligned before I could go do braver things in my business. And I think that we all kind of have conversations that go on internally. I know throughout my whole life, I've been hearing things, and I kind of now in my life and in my business, I really stop to kind of hear what it is that I'm saying to myself, mostly first thing in the morning. I've been hanging out and doing this work for a time now. And I would say for you to try to listen to what happens when you wake up in the morning. Like, are you saying things like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired? Or, what are the first things that you're thinking about in the morning? Like, do you have worries going on in your life? Like, look, this isn't fantasy. This is your life. Businesses aren't fantasies, they're businesses. And most people, myself included, when I first got the inspiration to start my business way back when, where my business plan was like an 8.5 piece of 11 by, 8.5 piece of 11. And I grabbed a piece of paper and I started writing out my first business plan while I was in, my class for holistic studies. And I'm like, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. And, I did it for a long period of my life, and I still believe in holistic, but me to be in media, and who saw that coming? But when I think about all the things that I've worked on that have been consistent for me is kind of the bravery to meet myself, right? So now I know when I wake up in the morning and I hear things, if I hear things like if I got a lot of pressures going on, I know exactly what I need to do. If I don't have time to sit there and examine what's going on and come up with all the solutions of things that are running through my head, then I put on something really inspirational and motivational that will shift my state, right? Because I know that that is an easy formula for me. So I think about that helps me be brave. And bravery for me can be anything. It can really be like saying no to an event that I've gone to for years with a group of people that I really like. I remember when my business started to get quite, we don't say the word busy here, but I'm going to say it for this podcast, but abundant. I didn't call it abundant back then. And people were like, oh my gosh, you're so this, you're so B, you're so B, you're so B. And I heard it so much that it didn't feel good. Like it didn't feel good to me because I felt like it was being said in a derogatory manner. And I did not have the bravery. I kept making excuses for myself. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm really inspired. And, people were like, oh my gosh, you're such a workaholic. And, you don't do this anymore, or, we never see you, and I was crying inside because I was like, don't you see that I'm living my best life? Don't you see that this is how it works for me? Don't you see that this is who I am? I'm a creative. And it took me years in my business to finally put my hand up and go, yo, do I look unhappy? Like, do I look unhappy? Like, I'm happy creating, and I love you and I adore you. And that didn't change. It just means that when you look at my life, you go to work, I go to work. I might work different hours than you, but I'm hoping that you're inspired by your work and you're there and you're giving everything that you have, that it's a big part of you. And I'm not calling you during your work hours going, hey, 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 and expecting any different. That was something that I went through early on in my career, where I had people that loved me, and it wasn't that they didn't like me. They weren't saying that you were busy because they were like not loving on me. They just didn't understand. And I know that I went through a lot there about bravery, having to like hold my claim. And sometimes I got really small with it. I'd be like, I'd make excuses and I'm like, I'm sorry I couldn't come. And I'd give you these long drawn out reasons why I really wanted to go over here. Or you know what I did? I'd go and then I'd be tired or I'd be exhausted or because I was trying to please everybody. And I remember getting to the place where I really just needed to be true to myself. And I hear, it's so funny because my world is in media. So people see me a lot on the outside. And so that's why we use the word abundant, because truly that's how I feel. But I remember when I first started correcting my friends, they're like, you're so, I go, no, we don't say that word anymore. We say abundant because abundant is a beautiful thing. Abundance is bountiful. It's joyful. It's full of creativity. And when I started looking at myself as a creative instead of an entrepreneur, that was a big difference. When I started looking at myself as a creative instead of a businesswoman, that was really different. Because being creative gave me the lease to be able to create. So if I'm doing something, if I'm expanding something, if I'm starting a new project or starting a new program, it gave me an internal lease on life. And I think that we're seeing that everywhere. There's been a huge movement from when I started doing my businesses to being able to have people like no teachers in school or in my training were like, hey, what do you want to do? Right? You know what I mean? Like it was more like options were given to you. Some more of the standard options were given to you, explore these. And now the world's really changed. And sometimes there's so many things to do. I think that some people are like, oh gosh, I don't know which direction to go in, but the encouragement to move forward and to be strong in your path. And, we hear things like sit at the right table. I mean, those are just make sure that for me, I sit at different tables. I sit at tables where people have no clue about entrepreneurship. None. I was the first entrepreneur in my family, and there's very few people in my family, maybe a couple of have-tos understand my life, but I sit at that table and I know the conversation that I want to have because I have a relationship with those people in that way, and I don't expect things from different groups. Just like I wouldn't go sit at a table of people that have, I don't know, never experienced jumping out of a plane and it's sitting there and talking about how I jumped out of a plane and wondering why they can't align with me on that. Why they're just like, oh, that's cool. Oh my gosh, this would be amazing. I'm like, no, I want to talk about it. What was it like for you? They can't talk about what it was like for them. So I think that was really a big step up for me, really just recognizing where I was going to get my resource and also being a resource for other people as well. So I think bravery comes in all sorts of different ways. Even now I catch myself, like if I have to stand up for something, sometimes as someone who was in a people-pleasing environment, I was music, right? Giving to people. I ran a holistic health studio where we served people and gave to people and taught to people and helped heal people. I was always in the outpour. And so it was a bit of a reverse when I was learning business boundaries and structures and what was important to me and how I could match that with my needs of my world, my family. Like, how did I work that in? How did I brought my kids into my business. I mean, I remember, someone in my family talking to my daughter about, oh my gosh, I would never go do what your mom's doing. I mean, that was the last time my daughter did a sleepover at that family friend's house, right? Because she came home and she's like, guess what? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But I had to set boundaries with people that made me nervous inside. Like, I remember there's people that were really close in my life. I didn't even tell them about the awards that I got because I wasn't sure. And here's something that's really interesting. I recognized this in myself not too long ago, is that there's someone in my life that I feel had a level of importance, and they were important in my life for a long period of time. And I've noticed that that relationship shifted and changed. And I'm reaching out and hoping that they are going to come back to the place that the relationship had. It's a friendship, right? And I was like, I'm noticing that as things are changing in my life and changing in my life and relationships to my son's success, they're not as cheering as they used to be. And I'm wondering what that is. And I'm finding that I had to really examine myself. What is it? Why are you going to a place to get water when the well's dry? And I was like, that's right. It's okay. It's okay. And I had to put an internal boundary for myself, by myself. It didn't have anything to do with them. And I could make up all sorts of stories about that, but I don't need to anymore, right? I just needs to be, does it serve me? And I'm going somewhere that's not serving anymore. Deb, it's okay. Let it go. Let it be what it is. Sometimes things just need to pause. So I think that as I go through this entrepreneurial experience, and I don't really use the word journey a lot. I'm using it because I know people use it a lot. I call it a stretch to significance. And sometimes that significance can be that day, that can be that week. And overall, you're going to see, I mean, for me, I've been doing this a number of years. And so the significance gets very different and you just get more experience at the significance. But there's still things that come up where I think I have to brave up in my life. And I think that we all have to brave up in our lives. I think that if we brave up in our lives, that we become beacons for other people that can't, or people that can't yet, and that when you push yourself to learn new things, I talk about that when you're at that place with your foundational in your business, and people that have been around 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years are like, I'm past the foundations. But if they've grown, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because every time you take yourself to a new level or add something new or go learn something new and implement it, you're at a foundational place in your business. And so it's very cyclical. And then I find that I need to brave up again. I'm going to be talking to different people about different things, or walking into a room and, they say the best rooms to go into is when you're the one that's at the lowest. Well, that's the hardest one to walk into. When you're walking into a room with everyone's that has more, whatever, fill the blank, experience, zeros, and you know what I mean? Like they lifestyle, whatever it is that tells your brain that you are going to have trouble sitting at that table, whatever it is, right? You'll get passed out, and I feel like for myself, I can just look at tables that I'm sitting at that are people. They're just people. I tell people about that because we go and do celebrity stuff. And I'm like, I have some of my best conversations where we're talking about our kids and has nothing to do with lights, cameras, or action. It's just that people are people, but there's a phase of going there or sitting at that table. And, you may feel like you're the only one that doesn't know anything. First of all, you're probably not accurate on that. But even if you are, good for you for being there. So bravery shows up in super, super different little ways, right? The big stuff is the obvious stuff, signing up for classes. I've done a lot of cart before horse, like put the cart, like I didn't have the money, I did it anyways. Those was a lot of bravery. I call it jumping off the cliff. I wrote checks for bills that were due and sent it off and paid it knowing that I had a certain time, and every time I was able to make it because I just knew. So I do, and I'm not telling you to go do that because, I don't want to be the person to do that, but I have lived my life very much putting the cart before the horse. And, here I am. Things may not have been perfect. There might have been a few little, bumps and all of that, but there would have been bumps anyways. And so I found for me, that was kind of the biggest part to my success. And I have to remember myself that, and I have to remind myself that there's a lot of cart before horse, and I don't know if it's any different. That just happens to be the way that it is for me. But I find by taking the biggest risks, I've had the biggest results. And so bravery for me can be in little things. Like it really can be in little things. It can be when I decided to, change my classes from, 75 minutes to 65 minutes. I mean, little things like that where I'm like, do I need to teach for 75 minutes? I think I can do what I'm doing in 65 minutes. Changing little things like that, having that discussion. I mean, that may be a big discussion for somebody. That might be a whole coaching hour for somebody because it's going to trigger something in yourself. Or putting some boundaries around family relationships or boundaries with your kids. I'm at a place where now I'm supporting my son in his company. And what does that dynamic look like? And when am I the mom? And when am I the momager? And when do I say no here? And how do I say no here? It's very different. It's a whole different learning of a relationship and setting boundaries. So I guess for me, I wanted to start off this about talking about bravery. And I want you to know that I think it's really, really, really time that at least you go inside and are brave for you. And I want you to recognize for yourself that when you do something, I mean, I give myself an outside, I'm like, good for you, Deb. Like, good for you. Like I had a conversation this morning, right? With someone that was interrupting me all the conversation, right? Someone I didn't know, someone who has more zeros than I do, someone who has, and I just finally said, you keep interrupting me. I really appreciate it if I could finish my sentence. I couldn't believe it was coming out of my face. I couldn't believe that came out of my face. But it was a brave move. I could have had a response back that wasn't cool. Fortunately, this person was like, yeah, you know what? Everyone tells me that. And I'm like, well, good. I'm glad to know that. Can I finish speaking? It would make for so much better. Our conversation would be so much better. And I think you would learn about me, which is what you keep asking about. And so it was great that it responded that way. But that probably took 10 years or 15 years of inner work to be able to interrupt a conversation with somebody and just kind of lay it out on the line like that. Who knows? Maybe you do that now. Maybe your boundary is the opposite to that. I don't know. But I just know that everything that I do in my life that has made me feel brave, like, I remember going and, hitting, chopping, the chopping wood. Like I've done that a couple times, signed up for classes that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the, way down here. I have no idea what they're talking about. Those kind of external things. Oh my gosh, bungee jumping upside down, learning how to fly a plane. And when the instructor goes, do you want to turn this plane upside down and do a 360 with me? I'm like, oh, didn't see that on the brochure. And I'm like, sure, you got this, right? They're like, yeah, I got this. Now, those are things that I did. And I know that sounds really external, but those things I think made a difference in my business. Those things I think made me a better partner, better mom, better person, better friend, right? So I don't know how to wrap this up other than to encourage you that I love the world that we're stepping into. And I love that there's opportunities everywhere. And I love that you get to expand yourself and be an entrepreneur in the most niche of categories. And I love that the world is really finding out what success means for them. And they're gauging it by what success means for them. I really love that. And I really love that people are stretching themselves to the best version of themselves. And I love that people are taking in the sunsets in different ways. And I love that we're teaching our kids that and we're making beacons of that. I love when I look at someone's social posts and I see that they're really, transparent in the best parts of themselves. So I hope maybe me sharing a little bit about myself in terms of bravery tells you a little bit of what goes on back here with me when I'm running these businesses and having conversations, and helping other people be the best version of themselves means that I need to push myself to be the best version of myself too. And recognizing that loving and caring and being gentle with those pieces that come up, like when I'm scared to say something to somebody, or when I'm concerned that making this decision is too big of a decision, or pulling back and going and taking time for myself, or turning my phone over and going and doing something that means completely nothing to anybody, going to movies by myself so that I can let my brain get lost in someone else's life and someone else's story. All of those things allow me to be to get to know myself better. And so that when I do step up and step out, that at least I am, for me, super proud of myself. And that's been a big step up for me. I think the whole thing around pride and being proud of ourselves, for me, has been a big piece of being brave. So with that, I hope that you found that educational, inspirational, motivational. If not, now you know a little bit of what goes on between here. And I thank you so much for being a listener of Mission Accepted podcast. All right. Be groovy. Be well.